presidential picks. Donald Trump chooses the first woman for a top-level role in his administration. Justice in Britain. A jury convicts a man in the murder of Labour lawmaker Joe Cox a week before Britain's EU membership referendum. The Jubilee year is now over, but the Holy Father encourages the faithful to live the spiritual works of mercy. Remembering the Mayflower. As we prepare for Thanksgiving, we take a look back at the history of the ship that brought the Pilgrims to America's shores. On EWTN News Nightly for Wednesday, November 23rd, 2016.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. I'm Wyatt Goolsby. President-elect Donald Trump chooses the first woman and first minority to serve in his cabinet. Trump will nominate South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley as the United States Ambassador to the United Nations. Jason Calvi joins us tonight from the White House. Jason?
Wyatt, Governor Haley was very critical of Donald Trump during the primary, but she says she's proud to join the Trump team. She says it's out of a sense of duty to the many challenges our nation faces right now. And this position will be very important in the defense of life, religious freedom, and world peace.
Nikki Haley became South Carolina's first female governor in 2011. She was 38. The one-time Trump critic recently spoke to conservative lawyers in the nation's capital. She says she owes her patriotism to her immigrant parents.
I am the proud daughter of Indian immigrants who reminded my brothers, my sister, and me every day how blessed we were to live in this country.
In a statement today, President-elect Trump calls Governor Haley a proven deal maker, and we look to be making plenty of deals. She will be a great leader representing us on the world stage. Haley is firmly pro-life. In May, she signed into law in her home state a ban on most abortions after 20 weeks of pregnancy. If confirmed by the Senate, she'll be the highest profile diplomat after the Secretary of State. At the UN, the Center for Family and Human Rights, a national pro-life group, has fought the Obama administration on life and marriage for 8 years.
The main problem is that they've been acting like activists, as LGBT activists or abortion activists, and instead of engaging in really sober and helpful diplomacy.
The group welcomes Haley's appointment.
We really need a change of direction. We really are looking forward to a change of direction here at the United Nations.
A job that could fall to Haley, the youngest governor in the nation.
Not all presidents have treated this UN position as a cabinet level position. The two most recent Republicans, the two Bush presidents, did not consider this a cabinet level position. But now that when she sits on the cabinet, Nikki Haley will have the chance, really, the opportunity to shape U.S. policy. Wyatt?
Jason, considering the bad blood between the two, why did Trump pick Haley?
The Trump transition team says it was really quite an easy pick, that Haley and Trump have a natural chemistry. But compare that to what Donald Trump did in March when he tweeted out that the state of South Carolina was embarrassed by Nikki Haley.
Jason Calvi reporting from the White House. Thanks, Jason. And the Trump administration makes a second cabinet-level appointment today, naming Betsy DeVos to be the next Secretary of Education. DeVos, who's from Michigan, is a longtime advocate for charter schools and school vouchers. She says she does not support Common Core education standards, which Trump railed against during the campaign. But critics say she backs the curriculum and is part of the political establishment. Her own 4 children attended private Christian schools. Now to other stories our EWTN News Nightly team is covering in today's world. A jury convicts a white supremacist of murdering a British lawmaker. Thomas Mayer was sentenced to life without parole for killing Joe Cox in June. The murder happened a week before Britain's vote on leaving the European Union. Cox, a prominent voice for staying in the EU, was the first British lawmaker to be killed in office in a quarter-century. 3 people are dead as Tropical Storm Otto hits Panama. A landslide in Panama City trapped 9 people amid the heavy rain. Otto will likely gain strength that could become a hurricane as it makes its way towards Nicaragua and Costa Rica. The storm could become the first hurricane to hit Costa Rica since the record-keeping started in the mid-1800s. The Jubilee of Mercy may be over, but Pope Francis' teaching on mercy continues. At today's papal audience, the Holy Father reflects on the spiritual works of mercy.
Quanti cristiani, laici, fratelli e sorelle consacrate.
Francis focused on instructing the ignorant and counseling the doubtful. He also praised the role of Catholic education in the life of the Church. Alan Holdren is the Rome Bureau Chief for Catholic News Agency. Alan, the Holy Father says education is part of the Church's mission, but he also points out problems that arise when people are deprived of education. What was he referring to?
He was speaking particularly about children who suffer from illiteracy and a lack of education, Wyatt. He spoke specifically about war zones like Iraq and Syria, where children are left out on the streets. They don't have any access to education. He said that this is a grave injustice, and it leaves them in a situation of possible marginalization and exploitation as a result.
When it comes to the work of mercy, counseling the doubtful, the Pope said it was a different kind of education. What does counseling the doubtful mean?
He said that it's a work of going out and soothing this doubt, the fear and anguish brought about through uncertainty, having questions about life, about existence that you can't find answers to yourself. People who actually carry out this work of mercy daily are spiritual directors, priests who aid people to overcome their doubts. Pope Francis pointed to the gospel and said that anybody going through this process of questioning themselves, which is natural, having uncertainties, should turn to the gospel, make the faith their lifestyle, and through living out the faith and practicing it, he said they can really come to terms with this and overcome those doubts.
Well, the Holy Father points out that there are many saints that were known for being great teachers and educators, like St. John Bosco. Tell us more about him.
Well, St. John Bosco lived in the 19th century here in Italy in a town called Turin up in the north. He was very widely known for his education methods. He chose to educate using a system that was based on love of the pupil. He was known for bringing a lot of kids off the streets in the town of Turin, where at that time there were a lot of kids living on the streets, a lot of delinquency. That's why he's known today still as the patron saint of delinquents, of also the youth, of young people, and even magicians. He was known for being really creative in his methods of teaching, and he leaves behind that legacy in this order of priests that he founded, the Salesians of Don Bosco, that have schools all over the world, including a school that Pope Francis himself actually attended as a child.
And it is a great legacy, love for the people. Alan Holdren with the Catholic News Agency joining us from Rome. Thanks, Alan.
Thank you, Wyatt.
After an excess of partisanship during the election, Americans are hoping for a break from politics and division. Catholic writer and professor Chad Pecknold believes Thanksgiving is a unique opportunity to come together as a nation to show gratitude for the blessings of liberty and freedom. Dr. Pecknold from the Catholic University of America joins us now. Welcome back. Why is Thanksgiving central to the American spirit of freedom and liberty?
Well, it's absolutely essential to our American spirit of liberty because Thanksgiving is absolutely crucial. Abraham Lincoln in 1864, after a hard civil war, after saying the cause of civil war is that we've forgotten God, has said, let's make a day in which we dedicate ourselves to thanksgiving and praise of the Almighty God.
Why do you think it is that we associate a secular holiday, Thanksgiving, with Christian virtues?
Well, I think in a sense, as G.K. Chesterton said, the highest form of thought is thanksgiving. Thanksgiving is something which has its end in God. That we give our gratitude to one another is a sign that there's a higher end to the gratitude which we owe to God, our Creator. And that gratitude is something which brings us joy and freedom.
What lessons do you think we can take as Catholics from the meaning of Thanksgiving?
Well, you know, the first Thanksgiving in 1621 was actually brokered by a Native American named Squanto, who was a convert to Catholicism. He taught the Puritans how to farm and how to feast, and all of that is a sign of his own love for the Most Holy Eucharist, which after all is the Greek word for Thanksgiving.
You know, Americans are deeply divided after this election. Can expressing gratitude sort of remind us, if you will, our shared debt to God for all of our blessings?
Well, I think it's a kind of safe harbor. You know, it's an invitation back to food and family and football and friendship, and it's a safe harbor from all of our political divisions in which we can come back together and say, you know, we have a share in all of these common goods, and our highest good is God.
Chad Pecknold from the Catholic University of America, thanks so much for coming in and talking with us about it.
Thanks for having me.
Just in time for Thanksgiving, the Mayflower is getting a makeover. Kind of. A replica of the ship that brought the Pilgrims to America's shores in 1620, called the Mayflower II, will undergo a $7.5 million overhaul in Connecticut. The group Plymouth Plantation says it has raised the funds needed and hopes to get the vessel ready for 2020, the 400th anniversary of the Pilgrims' journey to America. An estimated 25 million people from around the globe have boarded the 60-year-old ship, which will return to Plymouth in 2019.
Coming up, a big win for the pro-life movement with this month's election. But what's next? We get an update from a pro-life leader who's working with the president-elect. Plus, what Speaker Paul Ryan has to say about his Catholic faith and how much it impacts his work in Congress.
Thank you for joining us on EWTN News Nightly. I'm Wyatt Goolsby. We're learning more this week about how pro-life issues impacted the recent election. According to the Susan B. Anthony list, appealing directly to voters about the pro-life cause appears to have had a positive result. The group, which helps elect pro-life lawmakers, says it reached 1.6 million pro-life voters, including 1.1 million voters contacted directly at their homes in key battleground states. In a statement, SBA list President Marjorie Dannenfelser says this is an historic moment for the pro-life movement. Marjorie Dannenfelser joins me now in the studio. Marjorie, happy to have you back on the program.
So glad to be here again.
What impact do you think did the pro-life have on the election?
Well, if you ask candidates and people who actually won their offices they were running for, they would say decisive. And I would say that too from where I sat. We had 1.2 million homes visited by pro-life canvassers. That was in the battleground states and in Missouri, where there was a Senate election that was very close. We really made the difference in this election, and we have a lot to be proud for in the pro-life movement.
You had helped lead the anyone but Trump movement back during the primaries, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
How have your views changed on the president-elect since then?
Well, I have to say I was glad that I was wrong. But the truth is, as you might have noticed, is that he was our last choice. But when it came down to two, he was our first choice. The field narrowed and became a choice of two. And what he did leading up until the very end of the election was to make clear his commitments. At that third debate, he clarified and contrasted his position on life with that of Hillary Clinton's, and it made us very proud. It motivated our troops to win elections, and it really closed that margin for victory that we had to in battleground states and in tight Senate elections.
You've had contact with the president-elect. What do you think about his sincerity on some of those issues about the pro-life movement?
Here's what I've come to know about him. When he has made a decision, he's made a decision. It is a complete change. It's an act of the will. Now, being a pro-life convert myself, I know that a lot catches up with you. Some of it is language, but definitely on his part, the act of the will is there. And so we can see that the first thing that we'll do is defund Planned Parenthood. That's all that we really care about in the end. Actions will speak far louder than words.
What are some of the pro-life legislation that you think will have a chance to pass, especially with now a Republican-led Congress?
Yeah, I mean, we are in the strongest position that we've been in the pro-life movement in the last 40 years, since Roe versus Wade. I am not overstating, this is just the fact. So what we can first expect is to have a vote on defunding Planned Parenthood. We have to keep that pressure up. There's no question that people get a little bit relaxed. We cannot let them relax. We must do that. The House and Senate leadership and the Trump administration, that has to happen right away. We'll also have a vote on the pain-capable bill, stopping abortion after 20 weeks. We will nominate a pro-life Supreme Court justice, I would imagine within a year. Well, within a year, much closer than within a year, but maybe two within a year. And finally, we need to enshrine the Hyde Amendment, the no taxpayer funding of abortion amendment, in permanent law, so that our money is never a part of paying for the abortion of an unborn child.
It's a lot on the plate.
It's a lot. Thanks be to God.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we're very happy to have you back on the program, Marjorie, and we know we talk with you, of course, in the year to come. Thanks so much.
I can't wait.
Marjorie Dannenfelser, president of the Susan B. Anthony List.
Thank you.
Speaker of the House Paul Ryan says he's excited to work with the incoming Trump-Pence administration. His comments come after the GOP picked him to continue as Speaker. Chief White House correspondent and political director Lauren Ashburn spoke to Speaker Ryan earlier this year about how his Catholic faith influences his work as a lawmaker.
Does your Catholic faith impact that desire to teach, to reach out to young children?
It does. My Catholic faith It does inform me to teach. My kids go to Catholic school. We're very involved in our parish community. It's part of who we are. I went to Catholic school myself. So it's a big part of our community, and yes, it does. I think we are expected not to just be isolated in our lives. We are expected, whether you're in public life or not, but to help and minister and to help others. And so, yeah, I think that's right. And I'm just excited to see young people come out for the pro-life cause.
How do you pray at work?
I pray every day. I pray all the time. I open the House chamber today with a prayer. Just so you know, we do that. Right above the rostrum, above my head, if you see the Speaker of the House, you see that big flag, it says, "In God We Trust." And we open every day here in Congress with a prayer. We open our meetings in the House Republican Conference with a prayer. When we have a tragedy or something like that, we have a moment of silence and a prayer right here in Congress. So this is something we do on a daily basis, not only personally, but this is something we do every day.
The issue in the media is always, we say thoughts and prayers be with you, thoughts and prayers. And
I talked about this the other day.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, thoughts and prayers are important. So there are some in the media that are suggesting that this is a blow-off, that this is an insincere thing. Far from it. Asking for people to pray and sending your prayers to people is very, very important. And so for those in the secular left media who suggest that this is somehow something wrong to say, they just misunderstand the entire concept.
Because I think prayer is something that's never talked about. And I think that if there were a lot of people in the left media would say, let's never talk about prayer and let's not have it in schools and in church.
If you come into my congressional office, and any day for the last number of years, you will see a piece of wood carved in it that says pray, sitting on my desk. So this is something that we do, and it's part of our daily life here as public officials.
Now, your family. One thing, I was riding in the car, I was riding down, I was hearing that you were being considered for speaker, and they said, well, he's going to put something in there that says he wants to spend time with his family. And I, as a working mother, have that as something that is very important to me. How'd that work out?
It's worked out fine. I'm sticking to my schedule.
And what is that schedule?
I'm home in Wisconsin on weekends. So you have to remember, most speakers of the House are older people who are empty nesters. I'm a younger person with an 11, 12, and 14-year-old at home. I go home to Janesville, Wisconsin, where I live, and I'm with my family. We go to Mass, we go to volleyball and basketball and whatever, and I meet with my constituents. And so that's the routine I've had and I've been able to keep in Congress. And that was the routine I was going to keep, and I am keeping, if I became Speaker of the House.
You can see more of Lauren's interview with Speaker Ryan right now on our Facebook page. Just search for EWTN News Nightly. On a lighter note, turkey's tater and tot are spared from becoming Thanksgiving dinner. President Obama kicked off the holiday this afternoon from the Rose Garden, pardoning the two birds. He also issued a written proclamation declaring November 24th officially Thanksgiving and encouraged Americans to join together in homes and places of worship and to give thanks and share our bounty with others.
Up next, the Archdiocese of Washington honors a D.C. deacon in celebration of Black Catholic History Month. We ask him why he left the world of media for the church. And homeless men and women given the star treatment at a fancy Thanksgiving feast.
November is Black Catholic History Month, a time to honor the long history of Black Catholics. It was designated by the National Black Catholic Clergy Caucus and first celebrated in 1990. Thank you for joining us this evening. I'm Wyatt Goolsby. After more than 25 years in television news, Al Turner switched his focus from covering Washington to counseling residents of the nation's capital as a deacon. In celebration of Black History Month, the Archdiocese recognized Deacon Turner and two others at a special liturgy earlier this month. Before the celebration of the Mass, parishioners were led in praise and worship by the Archdiocese of Washington Gospel Choir, which sang at last year's Mass with Pope Francis. Al Turner, a permanent deacon for the Archdiocese of Washington, joins us in studio. So, Deacon Al, what led you from leaving the world of media into a life of service to the church?
Well, as I traveled around the world, I saw a lot of really incredible things. I saw mankind at its best and at its worst. And I've always wanted to serve, and when I got the call, I finally said yes.
You've been a leader in the pro-life ministry for many years. How have the attitudes towards the pro-life issue changed?
I think that mostly it's fatigue. The abortion issue, which is very, very important, don't get me wrong, takes center stage, but there are other issues that go along with it, and I think we need to address those so we don't even get to the point of abortion.
So what kind of issues are we talking about?
We're talking about the unequal playing field when it comes to education amongst the races, the high incarceration rates of African American men and men of color, which takes them out of the mix of being fathers and mentors and husbands, and the race issue that underlies almost everything that goes on in this country.
How do you think the church can really help to heal a lot of those racial divides?
First, we have to understand that there is a difference between people, that there is a division of race in this country. Not a bad thing, it's just what is. The demographics are such that this is no longer a Eurocentric country. It's a brown country. And we have to address things with that knowledge in mind.
Going back, though, I want to go back and ask you about the life issue specifically, about how that's viewed in the black community.
Again, one of the things that's going on in the black community is that there are life issues which must be addressed so that we don't get into a desperate situation where we think that abortion is the answer to whatever the problem is.
So it's really in that sense looking at the whole of society, trying to figure out
Right.
what's leading to these problems.
We have to have a holistic approach to living because we don't live in a vacuum. Everything that happens has an effect somewhere else.
Well, while we have you here in studio, I want to ask you about last year you had distributed communion at a mass attended by Pope Francis during his visit to Washington. What was that experience like?
It was an incredible experience. Pope Francis just exudes holiness. Even to be 20 yards away from him, I could feel that. And to have people come together as Catholics in a setting to welcome the Holy Father, it's just one of those once-in-a-lifetime experiences.
Well, it's great to hear about that experience, and obviously great to hear about your insight as well. Deacon Al Turner with the Archdiocese of Washington, thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Nearly 50 million Americans are expected to travel for Thanksgiving, and many will head home to be with family. But some have no home and nowhere to go. That's where Catholic Charities comes in. Mark Irons reports.
Music fills the banquet hall as the dinner guests arrive. Tables are trimmed with flowers, and silverware is wrapped with gold ribbon.
And it's a blessing for me, definitely. It's a blessing for all these folks.
Catholic Charities treated 300 homeless men and women to a special Thanksgiving meal Wednesday night.
Being here, enjoying myself. I'm loving it. I'm having the most fun I've ever had.
This Thanksgiving feast represents a very small fraction of the meals that Catholic Charities provides year-round. In 2015, the organization prepared over 11 million meals for those in need, serving at 638 sites across the country.
Now I can't think of any other better place to be than right here.
In 2005, Louisiana native Charles Williams lost his home and loved ones in Hurricane Katrina. But he says others are worse off than he is.
Some of my friends ask me, why do I laugh all the time? Because I'm spiritually renewed. You know, I know bad things happen, but I don't dwell on it.
Charles enjoys this feast with homeless friends. He says those friendships, Catholic Charities, and his faith in God have helped in his healing.
At times, I get a little upset when I'm by myself. I get a little homesick, obviously, but that's the human element. But spiritually, I'm being fulfilled, and that substitutes for everything else that I miss. I can see through faith how much can be accomplished. Faith does work.
In Washington, Mark Irons, EWTN News Nightly.
Thanks, Mark. And thank you so much for watching this evening. Enjoy your Thanksgiving holiday. We end tonight with a look at some of your answers to a question we asked on Facebook and Twitter earlier this week. What is your favorite Thanksgiving family tradition? Thanks for all your replies. For the EWTN News Nightly team, I'm Wyatt Goolsby. Good night, and God bless.